This episode of Reality Escape Pod is brought to you by Weldwood Marketing, Buzzshot, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, and Patreon supporters like you.
Cogs by Clockwork Dog is an easy-to-use software-hardware platform for running interactive events, including escape rooms, haunts, and other immersive experiences. Their plug-and-play hardware seamlessly integrates with their software, so you can create a game with any type of puzzle logic, lighting, and sound cues without having to write a single line of code. One of the cool things about Cogs, David, is that you can remotely access and control your setup via local area network or the internet. This means that you can access the software through a browser window. You don't have to install the software on all of your devices. What's really useful about this feature is that you can access what they call headless machines. These are computers without screens or keyboards that can boot Cogs automatically and start running your show.
This is exactly what we did at Recon with the cool prop that we hid out on the show floor.
And one of the other things that I really loved about the remote access capabilities is that as an owner, you can oversee multiple games at once, or what I think might be even more handy is that you can log in from home or anywhere else and you can troubleshoot an issue with your game masters. So maybe now you can finally take that vacation you've been dreaming about, but you can still keep an eye on things remotely. Get the Cogs starter set for only $130 with free shipping to the USA. This bundle is normally valued at $257. You can learn more and purchase your starter set at cogs.show. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or Facebook at Cogs app for the latest news. Link and details in the show notes.
Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm David Spira, alongside my co-host, PG Law. Together, we're exploring immersive gaming from all angles, and we'll be joined by guests who really know their stuff. Today's guest is Bill Dalitsikas, the mind behind Lockhill in Athens, Greece. He and his crew have produced some of my favorite horror escape rooms, including the monster mechanics-driven Sanatorium, as well as the massive, epic Chapel Catacombs. His H.P. Lovecraft meets Stephen King sensibilities have produced some of the most compelling horror worlds that I have had the pleasure of exploring. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to hear about all of these games. I haven't had a chance to go play them yet. David has, so I'm just so excited to be talking about it. And we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about your most recent games, but I'd like to start at the beginning. What's the origin story behind Lockhill?
In 2013, if I'm not mistaken, we had booked with my friends a trip in Budapest. And when we were trying to see what we're going to do, what kind of activities we'll do when we get there, we booked everything in advance, 6 or 7 months in advance. So we were trying to find activities. And searching for different things, we found something called an escape room. It didn't exist in Greece. We never heard about that before. We had done a lot of trips, but we had never seen one. We booked that. And by the time it was time for our trip, the first escape room opened in Greece. We went there to see what the experience was like. That was in 2014. And it's the first game I ever played. Even though we had actually booked our first game beforehand, we ended up playing our first escape room in Athens. So when we played the game, right after, I went like, oh, what a cool thing, what a cool idea. I think I can do that. I have a lot of things in my mind. I'm a very creative person. So I started going over it again and again. And after 2 or 3 months, I ended up renting a place and starting constructions and all those things.
Wait a minute. So you played one escape room,
Yeah.
and within 2 months, you rented a place, not just like dreaming about opening an escape room, planning it. You rented this place and decided you were just going to open your own.
Yeah.
And what was your background before that? What were you doing before you decided to make an escape room?
I've majored in Greek philosophy and teaching Greek, nothing really close to actually building things. I'm a very crafty person, though. I'm very good with my hands. I thought I could do that. I like playing board games. I'm an avid fan of role-playing games. All that kind of went into the creation.
Yeah, so not only are you a crafty person, apparently you're like a Lovecraftian person, because the theme of a lot of your rooms, it's all H.P. Lovecraft themed. So what was it about that aesthetic and that theme that really attracted you?
I like reading a lot of books, and also I like playing board games. And at that time, we were playing a lot Mansions of Madness. I don't know if you're familiar with the board game. First edition.
I am very familiar.
Okay. That was a very big influence when creating the theme and the game, along with the actual books that I had read. And Innsmouth, which is a huge inspiration for Lockhill. Lockhill is actually Innsmouth. Yeah, that's how it all started.
So what were your early games like? What was that first game like?
The funny thing is that my first games are still up and running. They are close to 11-year-old now, which for escape room is 100. But they are still up and running. The first one was Lockwood Manor. The second one was Voodoo Shop. The third one was Sanatorium. And the most recent one was Chapel Catacombs. From the beginning, I had like an idea of creating games where one game will continue right after the other one. I wanted to have an experience like you step into a chapter of a story and you can continue if you want to. There was nothing like that at the time. As a role player, I really wanted to integrate that, which led to very funny stories and very sad ones, but that's for another time.
This background explains so much of your design sensibilities to me. You have built fairly extensive overworlds for your games. And by that, I mean that you have an in-world lobby and hallways. Once you enter Lockhill, you are in the town of Lockhill. Talk to me about why you built so extensively.
I really love my games. I wanted people visiting to have a really unique experience in the sense that when they get to my place, they are immersed in my world and they're not there just to play a game. I wanted it to be like a full experience. Like when you are there, you are actually there. So that's why game mechanics integrated the reception area, the hint system, like everything.
It works very, very well. It's compelling.
Thank you.
So Sanatorium is a survival horror game that blends puzzles with character interactions where each performer that a player encounters is serving as a different kind of monster. Can you tell me how this mechanic works?
When I was designing it, I really wanted the actors to be a puzzle of themselves. Because at that time, when I started designing the rooms, by the time I ended up building a sanatorium and having the game being open to the public, like a year or a year and a half went by because I was actually designing it on my own. So that takes a lot of time, from the actual masonry to the wall decorations to the game mechanics to the automations to everything. So I really wanted the actors to be part of the puzzles. And even if you have a team that doesn't really like puzzles, they can interact with the actors and have the game with the actors by itself.
When you are talking about having the players interact with the actors and having that be a game in and of itself, what kind of interactions do these characters demand of the players?
You have two kinds of actors. One of the mechanics is that you have to be really silent, not make any kind of sound, be stealthy. turn your lights off and try to move without them noticing you, because they are heavily influenced by Silent Hill. So that was an influence also, one of my favorite games. And you have another actor where it's exactly the opposite. You have to move fast, get out of the way, because you can't hide.
I like this a lot because I feel like more often than not, actors, especially in a horror environment, they're used principally to deliver jump scares. But you use them to create a lot more tension and to create a lot more opportunity for play. You've also gotten very good at using your actors to subtly hint or move players or corral them through the space. Talk to me about how that emerged. Is that something you planned, or is that something that you figured out you could do through running the game?
They are part of the hint system. The actors are actually a way so that they can make players move towards the right direction without needing to talk with them a lot as a GM, or having them feel like they're getting a lot of help that they might not really want. It makes sense to me that if it's part of the game, it makes the game flow better, and it immerses you even more into the actual world.
That sounds amazing. I love those types of interactions where you have to figure out what the actor wants from you. But do players struggle with understanding how they're supposed to deal with the different actors? How easy is it for players to pick up on the mechanics that you're expecting of them?
It's not very easy. Especially over the recent years. The problem is that because in Greece we have a lot of horror escape rooms, and they all kind of use the same mechanic of having actors do a jump scare and then they run off or they chase you. People are not used to that, and they are less willing, let's say, to actually learn the mechanic or see what's happening and adjust to that. So we kind of have to teach it to them. If they are new players, then it's perfect. We prefer new players. They can adjust more easily. If you have very experienced players, it's much more difficult to have them learn something new.
Because of the expectations of how they've played other games with maybe a similar looking mechanic, but it's not exactly how you're using them.
Yes. It actually requires from players a lot. That's true. And not all people are up to that. Perhaps they don't like it, or they're not willing to actually learn how to play the game.
Yeah, especially when you have multiple mechanics in the same game. You've learned one and you start to feel comfortable with it, and then suddenly you have to switch over to something else. I can see how that would be difficult. Sanatorium is available to book in a few different play modes. And when we had interviewed Rich Bragg of TERPECA, he came on and he told us a little bit about the different play modes. Like Midnight Mode, I was obsessed after I heard this. Can you talk a little bit about the different modes that are available for your games?
Sure. So when I first designed the game, I really wanted it to have all the mechanics, the actor mechanics that we talked about. But I also liked having puzzles, different puzzles, a lot of puzzles with different mechanics. And I saw during the playtests that it was difficult for people that get scared to actually be in a state that they can actually solve things.
You can't puzzle when you're too scared. This is why a lot of the really scary horror games, they usually don't have that many puzzles, or if they do have puzzles, they're usually pretty easy because when your brain is in fight or flight mode, it's so hard to think critically.
That's true. But again, because Sanatorium was like an 8-year-old game now. At the time, there were only like 2, 3, 4 games in total having actors, one actor with minimal appearances like jump scares. So actually having an actor during the whole game, 2 actors actually, not one, and be part of the game was something very new. I had never played a game like that to have experience on how the actual flow will be. So it was during the playtest that I actually saw how that worked. And it was very interesting because, again, players can make a huge difference on what the game is and how it evolves during the gameplay. So I decided to have 3 completely different modes. One for the people that got scared more and could not function properly with difficult puzzles. Another where if you didn't want to have actors at all, because again, it was a time back then when very few games existed with actors and people were really afraid. They got scared very easily. So if you didn't want that, you could have only day mode, which had more puzzles. And even though the general mechanics of the puzzles were the same, the hints given or the steps that you would have to actually go through to solve them were more difficult. And then you could have the midnight mode, which actually combined very difficult puzzles with a lot of steps, intricate puzzles, with you having to actually handle the different mechanics of the actors.
You had day mode, which was all the more difficult puzzles, and you scaled back on some of the horror aspects.
There was no horror, no actors.
And then you had night mode, where it was the actor interactions, all the scares, and you had fewer puzzles or you made them very easy. And then the midnight mode is all the things. Haunted house plus an escape room with all the puzzles.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And David, from what I hear from your experience, you got to play on midnight mode.
I am a big fan of midnight mode. I have very vocally advocated for that being the truest way to play this, is to experience all of what this game has to offer. And from talking to lots of people who have played night mode or just day mode, it always feels to me like you are missing something big if you have only experienced half of it.
That's true, because the intention of the game was to actually be the midnight mode. That's what would be offered to people. You had a lot of teams where they wanted different things. So I really wanted them to experience it, and that's why it sort of got divided.
Trying to cater to different types of players.
Yeah.
What have been some of the pros and cons of operating with these different play modes?
It's a case study on its own, but people often got mixed in the sense that they thought the midnight mode was more scary, even more scary than night mode, which led to people not wanting to solve things, not being interested in solving things, but ending up in a game where you are required to solve very intricate puzzles with a lot of steps, and you actually have to find your way through the room because there are a lot of back and forth. And by itself, it's a puzzle to actually figure out what you have to do and also have the actors. But if you can't actually solve the puzzles, then the game adjusts in a way that you see less of the actors. Because if you do see a lot of actors, then you will only stay in one room. And 2.5 hours will go by and you won't have seen anything. So we ended up having like a lot of people that did not like the game because they had actually chosen something different than they would actually prefer playing.
Have there been any trends regarding the demographics of who plays which modes?
Yes, there's a huge difference. You can actually see through the years how the Greek audience has differentiated into different aspects of what they enjoy playing. You can also see night mode and midnight mode is the modes that people prefer the most. Clearly because there are actors in it and we sort of adjust the game. Over the years, people actually liking puzzles, I think they are less, which you can actually see from the number of horror escape rooms in Greece and in Spain, I think, during the more recent years.
Oh, I see. And what about tourists in general? Do you think that like people who are visiting from overseas, do they typically pick the midnight mode?
Depending the country. Again, you can see huge difference. Spanish people really enjoy their horror games. Usually people from Germany or the Upper Europe would prefer puzzle games. But again, during the more recent years, that has really changed, where we are in a sort of path where they really want to try having the actors. They don't want them to have in like the full extent. So they ask us to mitigate the game or make it less scary, but without removing a lot of things, which again affects the game, of course, because, you can't get the actual full experience. But again, there is a shift towards the horror game.
What are the percentages of the different modes? Like how often are the different modes booked? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, midnight about 50%, night mode, again, 40%, and day mode is like only 10%. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's really low. And it's mainly from tourists or people that have never played anything before and they just want to try it, but they don't know what it's about.
Yeah, if you're going to play a game called Sanatorium, you're going to pick the scary mode.
Hey REPOD listeners, running an escape room is tough, but getting more bookings? That shouldn't be a puzzle. This is Jake from Weldwood Marketing. We design stunning, high-converting websites, run targeted ads, and boost your SEO so players find you first.
David, I know that you've worked on and built a lot of websites as a UX designer. You got opinions on websites, particularly escape room websites. Hit me with them.
Oh yeah, I got opinions. Look, I'm in a glass house. I'm not going to claim that Room Escape Artist is exactly what I want it to be. I'm always working on it, always tweaking it, but it does its job. Escape room websites on average are so bad. And it's mostly because making websites is not usually the thing that escape room owners and creators are specialized in.
I mean, look, I get it. When you first opened your business, you're building the game, working on the website is probably the last thing on your mind. You slapped something together. You just wanted to get it up so that you could get customers in the door. But you know what? It's time for an overhaul.
Exactly. That Squarespace thing that you threw together, that Wix website that you just whipped up, all those codeless builders that you've messed around with, they just aren't doing the trick. The SEO on them is usually pretty bad, and oftentimes you're just missing really critical information. You don't have the answers that us players actually want and need before we can decide to go play your games. Or once we have decided to play your games, we can't find the information that we need. Like, what's parking like at your company? Has your website accounted for that? It probably hasn't. And I have been wondering that so many times when I'm pulling up to an escape room and we're a little bit behind and I'm trying to make sure that we don't show up at your door late. Your website can help improve operations. It can help improve sales. It can just improve the perception of your business and the perception of quality, because your website is often the first thing that people will interact with. Make that thing great. Make people want to come play with you.
And Weldwood can help you with that. Leave it in the hands of the professionals. I know you're busy trying to level up your games, level up your business. Well, let Weldwood help you level up your marketing.
All right, REPOD listeners, we love the escape room and immersive industry so much. We're doing something we almost never do at Weldwood Marketing. We're offering discounts. 15% off marketing services for your first 3 months, and $750 off escape room websites. We wanted to make sure you have something special for being a fan of REPOD. Go to weldwoodmarketing.com/REPOD to schedule a discovery call with me, Jake, and let's take a full assessment of your online presence and find out ways that we can unlock some more money for you and your business.
Links and details in the show notes.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about your latest game, Chapel and Catacombs. I haven't yet had the honor of playing this game, but what I do know is that it is very large. Help me understand the size of this game.
The actual game is about 550 square meters.
550 square meters is just shy of 6,000 square feet. So this is a very big game.
Yeah.
The sheer size and expanse and sense of how small we, the players, felt in that space made an impact on me. I am wondering, how does the size impact the gameplay? What are the pros and cons of such a large space?
It's built completely different from Sanatorium, where Sanatorium you have like very tight places and you feel like it's a bit claustrophobic. I really wanted the Chapel and Catacombs to be exactly the opposite, where the insecurity comes from being in a huge place where you don't really know or you can't see what's around you. So that was the idea behind building and designing the game. It does affect the game flow in a way that because it's such a place, You can't have people just walking from room to room. They need to solve something. But because there are a lot of rooms in the game, you end up having just one puzzle or two, depending on how big is the place, where the people get to stay. So they don't stay in one place for long, and that seriously affects the game, especially if you preferred one part of the set over another. That's just part of the experience.
Chapel Catacombs almost feels like two games that have been put together. The first and second half are very different from one another. Talk to me about what you're striving for in this experience and how those two halves came about.
I designed something that I would really love to play. So that was my main objective, actually. I really liked the set. I had it in my mind, so I started creating it. And I really tried to make what I had in my mind to actually build it. During the game, the playtests, it was apparent that people liked certain things more than others, so the game actually progressed that way. I also wanted it to be thematic, the reason why you go into the game in the first place, into the chapel, and what that means and why you have to go deeper. It all can be explained during the game if you want to give the time. There are various texts in the game where you get to learn why everything is happening. They're not integral to the game in the sense that if you don't read them, you can't play or move on. But if you do, you can get a better picture of what is actually happening.
Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about the Athens community in general, which has a lot of games opening at a pretty rapid rate. What kind of pressure does this competition put onto your business, or does it not put any at all?
It does. Well, as I mentioned before, I really like creating things that I personally enjoy playing. So that is always my main objective, even though I know that the trend is slightly more horror-oriented, having people chase you, being more active. I am aware of that, but again, I prefer building things that I personally enjoy, even if that means that the competition is more intense. In recent years, horror games have become a bit more extreme. Horror is even more, perhaps, extreme. For some people, they like it more intense. They mix being in an anxious state with being more physical. But I don't think that is something that I personally enjoy. I really don't like having people be very physical or manhandle you a lot. So I tend to stick to the things that I personally enjoy. That is my main goal.
Oh, I see. The mounting dread, as David likes to call it, more the anticipation of the horror rather than the physicality of being actually chased and grabbed.
Yeah.
On this podcast, one of my favorite things to talk about are the regional flavors, some of the styles typical of escape rooms in a certain region. And the Athens market has such an actor-heavy and horror-heavy escape room scene. Do you have any opinions on why the Athens market has evolved in this way?
Yeah, I think Greek people are really intense. They are loud and they like having fun and they are very outgoing and they like to express their fear, their joy. Also, people from Spain are that way. So perhaps the Mediterranean region.
You're happy to have an activity that encourages you to be loud and screaming.
Yeah, because that's the way that you are by yourself. So that kind of caters to that.
I totally understand. The first time I ever watched My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I was like, oh, this is exactly like how my family is. Like a loud Chinese family. Laughing a lot, joking around. Do you think a lot of it is also that you, in particular, really had an inclination for these horror games? And I know that you were probably one of the first escape room companies around. So do you think that a lot of it is also just that you were the first company, so a lot of the local enthusiasts are playing your games, and in their minds, this is what an escape room should be. It should be like horror themed.
We do have games like Paradox Project, which is considered among the best globally, I think, puzzle games. So people also had the chance to play those kind of games in Greece. It's not like they only had the horror escape rooms being offered and that's what they learned and that's what they would expect. They also had the chance to play really good puzzle games. So it ends up being more, I think, on what they personally like and enjoy more.
Does Greece or Athens have a history of having haunted houses, haunts, and things like we do here in America?
No, it's not that common at all, actually.
It feels to me like escape rooms have stepped in to fill both the puzzle side and the horror side of that dynamic.
Yeah, that might be true. I've visited like a lot of haunted houses during my trips abroad. And the truth is we don't have anything like that in Greece. So perhaps that might explain it.
It feels to me like the horror games in Athens have been getting increasingly more extreme. And I noticed that your games, they are pushing a lot of boundaries psychologically, but they are not pushing some of the same boundaries physically that we've seen other games push on. I still felt safe while playing your games. I'm curious to hear your take on what the trend towards more extreme games in Greece has been.
That's true. There are a lot of games where they are a bit more physical, or they might be pushing some bounds, as you mentioned. I feel, though, that most of the games are not like that. Usually, though, again, as being very loud and opinionated, Greeks tend to shed more light on the games that are a bit more physical, even if those games are not actually the ones that are more frequently booked. I feel like there's a misconception that most of the games in Greece are like that. That's not true. We do have games that are like that, but most of the games, and even the newer games, I don't know if you've played any of the games that opened like last year or this year.
I have.
Okay, so you do have an opinion on the matter, but I feel like most of the games are not very physical in that sense.
Mostly the things that have been catching my attention have been the use of things like fire or abundant use of restraints, handcuffs, ropes, chains, things of that nature.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm personally against that. A lot of the owners in Greece are really against that, and we often try to talk to other designers and really tell them, even if they do take a lot of precautions, especially during the more recent games, the regulations have shifted and they are very, very strict regarding smoke alarms and sensors and fire sensors and all that. So when they do use those kind of elements, usually they pay attention. Again, though, I often find myself advising against that just to be safe because, you really don't know what a player might do, even if what you've designed is safe. It's better if you just avoid it entirely. But I feel like the need to make new things, to do things that other people haven't done, push you to that direction. And even though that might not be the best direction to go, I understand why there is a need for that.
I get that too. On top of the question of you never know what a player will do, you also never really know what an open flame will do either.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk being invited in when you push into some of these more extreme areas of design.
Hey, escape room owners! Are you looking to level up your marketing and operations? BuzzShot is an all-in-one solution for powering business growth and improving the customer experience. They offer a ton of pre- and post-game features, including waiver management, creating awesome branded team photos, and they can streamline review management for Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google Reviews, Facebook Reviews, wherever people review. They got you covered, and they also offer integrations with Cogs.
For folks who've been listening all season, I think one of the things that you'll realize about BuzzShot is that it's known for waiver and photo software, but there's so much going on underneath the surface. So many different opportunities that BuzzShot has taken to take their software and help to automate and streamline your business operations. In addition to all that automation, they have a built-in CRM, which is a fantastic tool to help you organize all of the data for all of the customers that have come through your doors. And it also has the ability to coordinate your email marketing campaigns, which is what you want to do with that data that you have gathered. And Then they have a dashboard on top of it to help you process all of the data that's coming from all of that and all of those stats. Everything is in one place, making it easy for you to not just execute on your business needs, but also to analyze the results.
Jan from the Gudenkoi had this to say. Thanks to BuzzShot, we finally found a dummy-proof and quick tool that gives us professional results.
Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. REPOD listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod, that's REPOD, to learn more. Link and details in the show notes. You have licensed Sanatorium to Escape Stories Wuppertal in Germany, and they have opened the game under the name Asylum of Fear. As popular as Sanatorium has been, Asylum of Fear has gone on to potentially be even more popular. Tell me about the experience of collaborating with Escape Stories and licensing out your game.
They played the game a few years back, and they really wanted to enter the horror scene in Germany, since you didn't see that many horror escape rooms abroad, especially in Germany. So since they really, really liked the game, they wanted to have something like that in Germany, catered a bit more to the local people though. So we ended up collaborating and updating the game because, again, Sanatorium was almost like 8 years old now. So when designing it, we went over a few things. I was really happy to inform them on all the problems that I had encountered running the game for so many years. We adjusted things, we changed a few things, while still retaining the feeling of the game.
Oh, so this was your chance to make improvements after licensing it.
Yeah, I knew what worked and what not after so many years. So, if I build it now, it would again retain basic elements, but I feel like it would be a very different game, catered to the people now, this age.
Have you considered going back and then now implementing those improvements into your current game?
Yes, I have, but I'm actually building now a new game where it will sort of be that. Without actually being the same game, it will be a different game, but I really love Sanatorium, perhaps a bit more than Chapel Catacombs.
Oh.
Personally, my game style is like actually using the actors and interacting with them and trying to make them get out of the way. I really like that. So perhaps it will be something like that. I'm not really yet sure, but we'll see.
Are there any lessons that you have taken away from licensing your game and collaborating with creators in another country that you would use to potentially do this again? I'm asking because there's not a lot of companies who have produced top games globally who have then licensed them out elsewhere. And I find this fascinating, and I love that you've done it.
Yeah, of course. Every experience teaches you things, and you know how to do them better the next time. Minor inconveniences or problems that might occur during the games, during collaborations, wherever, you learn from them, and when the time comes again to do it from the beginning, you do it better. Of course, I've learned a lot of things. For me, it's important. The reason why I licensed the game in the first place is because I know that there are a lot of people that will never come to Greece, and I really want them to play my game, to experience it, to see what it's like. I feel honored when I have people playing the games that I've created, I've built, I've designed, and they are having such a good time, especially when they've played like hundreds of games internationally, and they have a lot of things to compare my games to, and they end up having a good time. That really, really means a lot to me.
So would you keep doing this if other people approached you? Would you continue licensing out Sanatorium or your other games?
Of course, and I would end up possibly making them even better.
Very interesting.
So who is building these games? How many people do you have on the Lockhill team?
It's only me, actually.
No, stop it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which also, I'm a little bit shy on the subject, and I really don't like talking about that, but I've designed like everything. Whatever you see when you walk in the place, from the bricks on the wall, or the tiles on the floor, the automations, the Arduino, the costumes, the puzzle designs, the game flow, the layout, the masonry, the wall decorations, everything. The 3D printing part of it. Yeah, that's why it takes 2 or 3 years for me to build a game.
That's not that slow if you're doing it all yourself.
Wait, and so like when you say you're doing it yourself, you're designing it yourself, but also the construction, is the construction all only done by you, or do you have people helping you with the build?
Most of the games up to now were only done by me. Again, for example, House on the Hill, which is about to open during the summer, it's taken me like 4 years to actually build the game. The interesting thing is that building the game, like the actual walls, is not that time consuming, but actually designing it in your head in a way that you won't have to go back and tear down walls and rebuild them or remake them because things change in your mind or you decided on proceeding with another way of game flow. That is what takes a lot of time. And of course, the occasional psychological burnout, because I also have to actually manage all the running games, deal with things that might
break or go wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I've read the reviews on Room Escape Artist, and I know that some of these games, there's an entire town that you go into. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sounds more than it actually is, lower your expectations. Expectation is another thing it's a bitch. But yeah, so actually building it takes a lot of time and designing it. And for example, I've been like the last 2 weeks, I'm stuck on writing code for an Arduino project that it just won't work. So it's all those things combined.
Oh, and you're doing all the tech yourself too. Now, I had a question about the town because I know you go in and it sounds like there's some kind of like a town facade. To me, it sounds like there's multiple buildings. Is this like pre-existing buildings that are already there? Or like how much of this are you building from scratch?
The actual space was a factory. It was just a huge floor with no walls, no middle walls. There were only the outer walls and the columns holding the above floors. So it was just a huge space. And when designing it, I just again thought of what could this be? What would Mansions of Madness do with this place?
You just wanted to bring your board games to life.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, like there's some large things in there. Like, are you getting help at least holding things up while you fasten materials together? Like, there's literally no one else in there when you're doing most of the construction?
Up until Chapel Catacombs and Hill House, which is the one, there was no one, which meant there was for like 3 months, both of my wrists had a condition where you couldn't hold things because I used them that much. And holding heavy things and, drilling at the same time. And
Bill, you got to get some help. You got to get some people on your team.
I'm guessing you've got a lot of clamps laying around.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed I do.
And you didn't have a background in construction or building or anything like that either.
No, but I did spend many hours on YouTube actually learning things and stuff.
YouTube, wow.
There you go. YouTube and clamps.
During my most recent game, the one after Hill House, which will open sometime next year, I decided to get a bit more help. So that game, I got a lot of help in building the walls, not designing the game or, anything else, but just building it, which was easier for me.
Wild. So, Bill, don't take this the wrong way. You are so kind and soft-spoken. You do not strike me as the kind of person who has a burning desire to build lots of horror games. Talk to me about that. I'm just curious about the dichotomy of who you are and what you are making.
I feel like horror is misunderstood. Personally, for me, horror is having the excitement of the unknown. It's just an extra layer of excitement. So that is the scale of the horror that I like to offer to people coming and playing my games. That's why I don't like people like grabbing you or being very physical. I don't play that games. Even in Greece, there are games that I have not played because of that. It's exciting to be slightly afraid or laughing out because you're a bit scared, not being scared to the point where you have an anxiety attack or anything like that. But there's a slight level when you are afraid just enough, it's fun.
Yeah, for me, there's also the feeling of relief afterwards. Like you feel so relaxed almost because you were so tense. And then you're allowing your body to build up that tension. And then afterwards, when you laugh with your friends because you were so scared and now you're not. And so it's strangely relaxing in a way afterwards.
And you might have your friends do silly things or funny things because, they are afraid and you are laughing at them. That's always fun. Yeah.
Talk to me about your love of rainy days.
I hate summer. I hate sun. I can't stand the heat.
Oh, spoken like a true goth.
I say, you live in the wrong part of the world, my friend.
Oh, yes, I do. Especially if you consider that half of the year is like summer here. I do suffer in those months, but I would prefer living in a colder climate with rain, where people and residents are strange and mysterious and you don't really know what's happening. So that's what I built.
Aha.
It's that time of the year, David.
You mean recon time?
Recon season! And this year we are doing recon from the comfort of your own home. That's right, folks. You can kick back. You don't have to wear pants. You can grab a glass of wine and enjoy recon from the comfort of your own living room.
Please put on pants, or at least don't let anyone see that you're not wearing pants. But yeah, it's really important to us that we give people from all around the world a chance to come to recon, that we have a low-cost event. It's free at the cheapest tier, and even the most expensive. This is about the recon team producing an event that is hyper accessible for everyone around the world to come join in. August 17th and 18th, 2025. There's no easier way to get access to so much information and so many wonderful people in the international escape room and immersive gaming movement. And you can learn more all about this at realityescapecon.com. Tickets are on sale now, and I hope to see you at Recon.
Come join us. Pants or no pants. What do you get when you cross puzzles, pals, and trivia? It's PG's Playhouse, our new show where we play games and explore interesting topics. If you love wordplay and learning about new things, check out PG's Playhouse, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Chapel Catacombs, which was the fourth and most recent game that you made, concluded with a message that your next game will be The House on the Hill. You've alluded to it a little bit over the course of this interview. Mm-hmm. Can you give us any updates on it?
Yeah, it's almost ready. The funny thing is I've been saying that for like a year now. But it's true, it's actually almost ready. But I'm in a state where I'm a bit tired and things are pushed back due to that. I also get a lot of new ideas. I try to integrate them because I've designed the game almost 5 years ago. I started building it about 4 years ago. The market has slightly changed, so I'm in a state where I'm really trying to wait if I will leave the game as it is because that's what I like and what I love playing, or if I should just slightly change it.
In what way has the market changed?
People are more into the horror part now. It's funny because when I've played a game and I might read a review about it regarding the level of the difficulty it has in regards to puzzles, for example, the review says really challenging puzzles and fitting to the concept and the level of the horror of the game. And I might have played the room and I might have thought that they were nice puzzles, but not that tough. And then I think about my games, and I think, are my games like really hard? If people found that those puzzles were very difficult, should I make mine easier? Or will I end up having another Sanatorium thing where people get stuck on difficult and challenging puzzles and they end up losing part of the interaction with the actors? I feel like designing horror games, it's much, much harder than designing puzzle games. I have a lot of opinions on that subject.
I'm curious what you feel makes designing a horror game more challenging than designing a puzzle game. Because I see difficulty in both, but I also know that there is a broader perception that horror games are easy.
Not when designing them. The thing is this, when you have a puzzle, there's an objective way of actually qualifying the difficulty of it. You can have 10 teams trying to solve that. How many teams actually solve it? Is it that hard? Is the hints given proper and correct? How much time did the puzzle take to actually be solved? That can be quantified. The problem with horror games is that people can have widely different reactions to the same things, and they can't be quantified. And that heavily impacts the difficulty of the puzzles when you have both actors and puzzles. So, for example, if you have a person where I'm not really afraid. When I do horror games, I'm almost entirely not afraid, which I hate because I lose part of the fun. So for me, when I go and actually try to solve a puzzle, I don't have other factors making it more difficult for me. I can actually just focus on the puzzle and solve it without being afraid or being in an odd state of mind. Again, if you have a person where he's very afraid and he can't solve, like he can't even move or make a step, and the puzzle might be nothing for him. It might be very easy. And if you gave it to him like outside of the horror atmospheric room, it would be very easy for him to solve. But the actual state of having actors and the people playing the game being afraid can make it like the puzzle cannot be solved, even if you gave him like an extra 1 hour. And that cannot be quantified. So you have to cater for very different situations. Will you have a team where the players are very, very afraid and they can't solve even the simplest things? Will they not pay attention to the actors at all and be like, okay, I saw you, can you please move aside because you are in my way and I just really want to solve that puzzle? And that you don't know.
I can imagine it's also harder to playtest that puzzle because you can't replicate the horror experience, right? So if you're testing a puzzle and you're playtesting, you can just send a puzzle to like 20 different people and be like, hey, solve this, tell me how fast it took. And then, yeah, you can get your results and figure out average times and things like that. But how do you replicate someone solving a puzzle while under stress? Now you have to replicate the whole horror situation to really get an accurate feel of how the puzzle is accurately going to perform in the game when you do have the actors. So I can see how that would be really difficult to try to anticipate.
The funny thing is that also the team members that, for example, if you and your friends go and play the game, you might get scared not because of the actual game, but because of your friends. Or you might have one of your friends being very, very afraid, and that might affect you. And when you revisit the game with a different team, the experience might be completely different because the actors had to adjust to that one person. And again, that's not quantified.
Some of the most scary moments I have had in horror games, even not especially scary horror games, have been a direct result of playing with somebody who is flailing their arms around or slamming into things. Almost all of the most terrifying moments in escape rooms for me have been a result of a teammate.
Yeah.
I just played a horror game where it wasn't even that scary. And we were standing around and someone just tapped me on the shoulder to say, like, did you solve that puzzle yet? And I gave the most blood-curdling scream you could not imagine from nothing. Just my teammate tapping me on the shoulder. So, yeah, I mean, 100%. People can just get scared by the stupidest things.
And even that is not something that you could replicate, because if you revisit it with another of your friends that might be not afraid in the least, you would describe the game to them like very scary and I was screaming. And when they come to play the game, they don't get that because it was not something that the game on itself offered. It was the interaction of the players and the game and the actors and how the actors adjusted to the game. And a puzzle game doesn't have that complications when designing it.
So when you're designing a horror game, you are effectively designing for the chaos of a horror game.
Yeah. And you can never design for chaos enough. Because again, on the other side, I really don't want people going through the game and being left with half an hour or 1 hour of time left. Because I would not like that when I might play a game. So I try again to have enough puzzles so that a very experienced team, okay, will have time left, but not like 40 minutes or half an hour. But on the other side, if you have someone that's not very skilled at solving puzzles and they are very, very afraid, the game kind of stagnates a bit mid-flow. And that again creates a problem.
It makes a lot more sense to me now why you are offering your games in 3 different modes. Bill, so I know besides the game that you're working on now, what else comes next for you?
The game that I've already started building, with help this time on the construction side, is heavily related to the Sanatorium. So in regards to the story, it will be what happens after a few years of Chapel Catacombs. So it will be a redesigning of the actual, not redesigning, it's a completely different game, different floor design, different things happening, but it will resemble, if I don't end up changing my mind again, Sanatorium, but in a much larger scale, with, again, different design elements and hopefully innovations. We'll see.
And if our listeners want to follow along with your work, find out when your new game is going to be opening, where can they follow you?
So you can find both our Instagram account and our Facebook page on our website.
I will have links to all of that in the show notes.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us. I think this may be the first time that I have played a creator's games but not met them before having them come on the podcast. I didn't meet you. I couldn't find any videos of you. This was really the first time that I could meet who you are and see what you are all about. And you are as thoughtful and kind in the way that you are designing your games as you are intense about what it is you're producing. And I have a tremendous amount of admiration for that. Also, it is just incredible how much you have built on your own, creating things that are so special. I have not played games like your games, and each time I have played them, they have made me rethink or think differently about the way that escape rooms and horror experiences can and should be designed. So thank you for that.
I have no words. Thank you for all that. It really makes me happy when I call my games my children. So that makes me really happy.
This episode of Reality Escape Pod is produced by Teresa Piazza with support by Lisa Spira, Richard Burns, and Yana Airbus. We're edited by Steve Ewing of Stand Inside Media, music by Ryan Elder, logo by Janine Proct, and all of this is brought to you by RoomEscapeArtist.com, your home for well-researched, rational, and reasonably humorous escape room and immersive gaming content and events. Boy, am I aware that everyone out there is competing for your Patreon dollars these days. And I gotta tell you, we benefit so much from our Patreon community, from the financial support and the moral support that they provide. We have grown so much over the last few years. And by grow, I really mean we've built a lot of infrastructure to make all of Room Escape Artist work so much better. And that is only possible because of our Patreon community. That is the bedrock that everything we're doing is built upon. And we are so deeply thankful to every single person who has joined. And if you have the money and you're able to, we will be so appreciative if you can put your support behind us.
And if you're loving our content, we do have more. We have the bonus after show where we continue the conversation with our guests, and it is a whole lot of fun. And if you want recaps, walkthroughs of specific escape rooms, we've got the Spoilers Club. That is one of my favorite shows to record because I get to really dig deep into these escape rooms, talk about how they're made, and just generally gush about what I loved about these wonderful experiences. Check out patreon.com/roomescapeartist for more details on our additional shows.
And a very big thank you to our highest level Patreon backers: Derek Tam, Breakout Games, Escaparium, Pat Dupin from Olivier Escape, Panic Room, Chris Laughlin, Rex Miller, Mark from Keystone Escape Games, Byron Delmonico, Karen, Kieran from Mystery Unfolds, and Andy Mincer. We truly appreciate your ongoing support. And finally, as we come around to this story at the end of the episode, if you have gotten this far and you have not yet left a 5-star review for us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please go do so. It does so much to help signal to other people and to the algorithms that this show is worth listening to.
It sounds funny now. It was not at the time, because we ended up receiving a lot of negative reviews. But a woman had come to play Chapel Catacombs, a tourist. So she was in a part of the game where she was really afraid. And she was standing next to a cupboard. She had just opened the cupboard, and she required at some point during the game for the actor to make less appearances so that the game would be less scary, because she really didn't enjoy that. We do cater for that. It's very easy for us to just remove the actors completely or have them make less appearances. So we adjusted the game, and during the game, she was standing next to the cupboard, which kept opening by itself because it had the spring where when you unlock it, to make sure that you've actually seen that it's open, it just pushes the lid out a bit so that you can see the light from within. It was a part of the game where people had to get separated. She was by herself, just standing there, and the cupboard was repeatedly touching her leg because it was trying to open. She pushed it back, it would open again, she pushed it back. She had no light because the other team members had taken all the candles and flashlights. So she was just there, and she kept screaming to the non-existing actors that we were abusing her.
Stop touching me!
There was no one there. It was just the cupboard touching her leg repeatedly.
And give him the award for best horror actor. The cupboard.
Well, it would be a much cheaper game if that was true.